Welcome back to Creating Cash Flow. This is a show where we challenge what you've learned your whole life about traditional investing, and we show you how to take control of your financial future. We are back. My name's Kurt Carlton. I'm here with my co-host Andrew Welker, and we are with Robert Kiyosaki. Robert, we were just talking about debt. Now, most people are afraid to get into investing in real estate, mainly, I think, because they're afraid of debt, but you feel the opposite. You love debt, right?
Right, and you shouldn't be afraid of debt if you have no financial education, no experience, which you guys are providing people, you know, the context, the people. Real estate is pretty much management intensive, a finance intensive investment. So you've got to be smart, you've got to have experience, you have to have good people around you. But one of the advantages of real estate is debt and taxes. You see, the banks right now are giving away a real estate at what, 4%, 3%?
Yes.
Well, you got to be kidding me. You know, when I was your age, they were like 18%. You know, try making a deal work at 18%. That's tough. So there's idiots out there can't make a deal work at 6%, 5%. You got to be crazy. And you know what? Those interest rates are going to go up because they have to go up. So these people are waiting for something to turn. Well, it already turned. It's real estate. So the beautiful thing about real estate, you use OPM, other people's money, your banker's money. Your bankers want to lend you money for real estate. They don't want to lend you money for your business, but they'll lend you money for real estate. There's a reason for that. So you should find out. That's why they should come and talk to you guys why bankers like debt. On top of the debt is tax-free money. I am doing my best to borrow as much money as possible. Last year I borrowed $2 million, tax-free. How I got that money is exactly why Susie Orman says don't do, whatever Dave Ramsey says don't do, I do. Because I'm trained different than them.
Did you just quote Susie Orman?
Well, yeah.
He said, I love it.
They're different. They're different people. You know, I love real estate. But I love real estate because bankers will give me millions of dollars. They don't give me millions of dollars for anything else. They won't lend me that much for my business. They'll give me millions for my real estate. On top of that, the tax department gives me tax breaks. It's called, you know, depreciation. So I don't get it, you know? I mean, why are people so afraid? Well, what they're afraid of is incompetence. They lack the education, they don't have good guidance, they don't have good mentors. Because real estate is primarily a finance and management proposition. You've got to be an entrepreneur. So the more debt I have, the higher my return on investment. And since it's other people's money, let's say I'm making $100, but I borrowed $10 from the bank, what's my ROI? Well, it's infinite, because it's not my money.
Yes.
See, a pure capitalist is trained to use other people's time and talents. They're called employees. And other people's money is called my banker's money. So the reason I don't work and the reason I make so much money and I get tax breaks is because I use other people's time and talents and other people's money. That's what capitalists do. If you're a socialist or a communist, you pay high taxes and they shouldn't give you any loans anyway. So anyway, that's kind of my philosophy on life. And if you're paying too much in taxes, it's because you might be a communist or a socialist. You better start changing economic philosophy. I'm only kidding you guys here. I'm doing my best to get you off ground zero and let you know that this is the best time to get rich. I've never seen interest rates so low. You know, and everybody's saying, get out of debt. You got to be nuts. There's good debt and bad debt. Bad debt makes you poor. Good debt makes you rich. But it takes financial education, something not done in our schools, is why we have presidents and senators and congressmen, why we have a financial crisis, is because we have highly educated idiots running this country.
So that was Robert Kiyosaki. Very opinionated individual, to say the least. So I guess I want to talk a little bit about the objectives of this meeting and why I did these last 5 investor block meetings. It kind of brought it up in me when I ran into Chuck right here. Chuck and I were in the same MLS class 7 years ago when I got my real estate license. And it got me thinking, what I want to do, I mean, I want to make a lot of money. That's what I want to do. But for these events, I mean, the reason we did all this is because I want to grow the industry. I want more people to invest in real estate. I've got 2 companies, New Western, I got Sherman. If more people just get involved, we've got a big enough market share where we don't need to focus on getting customers anymore. We just got to focus on growing the industry. We want to get more people involved. But more important than that, the kind of missing link of everybody's life is I'd love to run into some of you guys 7 years, 10 years from now, and you take action because of some of the things that you saw today. And you've changed some things, and you invest in real estate, and you pick up a whole bunch of properties, and I can bump into you in a restaurant someday, and you can say, that's Kurt Carlton. I remember that one presentation, man, that really got me thinking. And you can say to your wife or your girlfriend or your husband or whatever, I made my first $1 million because I got started into something based on what that guy said. I know that's a lofty goal of mine, but that's the stuff that gives me drive, and that's the reason that I'm going to share today what I do. And, you know, the reality is 75% of the people in the room, they're going to get all this information. They're not going to do anything with it anyway. So, but economics are very important. It can be kind of boring. I'm not here to talk about politics. So I'm not here to talk about gun control or, you know, Republicans or Democrats or anything like that. I just want to talk about numbers. And the reason I want to show you all this is so that you know what to do. Plain and simple. So that you can look at the information and you know what to do. They're just facts, they're numbers. I get all of my information from the Congressional Budget Office, from places like that, okay? I try to stay in the middle. I don't go to the right. I don't go to the left to get my information. I stay away from the media, and I'll cover all that stuff. So if we want to talk about gun rights and all that stuff today, we can have a beer later, right? There's nobody in here carrying a weapon, right? Besides me? Nobody's packing heat, right? Okay. All right. Well, the agenda today, I'm going to talk about this year and next year because there's some really interesting stuff coming up and there's some decisions that you have to make, okay? We're going to talk about the local area here, specifically DFW. The next 2 decades are going to be very important. There's going to be some opportunities. There's going to be some huge risks for everybody that takes action. There's also going to be some huge opportunities for everybody that takes action. Okay? We're going to talk about interest rates and we're going to talk about inflation. Because remember, I told you, real estate is management and finance. So you've got to know what's happening with interest rates. I'm not going to tell you what to do at the end of this presentation. Warren Buffett is. Okay? He should be calling in around 10:45. We're just going to satellite him in. All right. I like to tell the future. That's kind of what I've been doing. I've been pretty successful at it, and what I mean by that is I've been better than the Mayans at telling the future, you know, or any of these things. But what I look at, well, let me tell you what I don't look at. I don't watch the news. I don't read newspapers. I don't watch the news. I don't get on the internet, and I don't read Fox. I don't read CSNBC. I do have a USA Today gives me little push notifications to my phone, and my total time that I spend on reading the news is about probably 2 minutes a day because I just read the headlines so that I know what's going on, so that when I talk to one of you guys in a networking event and you say, hey, did you see what happened? I can say, yeah, I saw that, and tell me about it. And I don't have to spend all the time reading about it, right? But I don't watch the news. That's the first way that I tell the future. I will talk a little bit about that later. What I track is leading indicators, okay? I follow non-political economists, and I'm going to give you some places where you can go to follow some of these guys too. And what I mean by non-political is I'm not on Fox News learning what's happening today, getting all hyped up and steaming and joining the Tea Party and getting all fired up, or the opposite. So I don't listen to NPR. I try to follow non-political economists. Less info is more info, okay? It's just like a diet, right? If you're going to McDonald's every day and you're just plowing yourself with food, that's low-quality food going in. If you're eating a lot of it, it's a lot of low-quality food. So you want to look at high-quality information, and less is more. Less is more when it comes to information. This philosophy goes against just about what everybody does, because you think the more information you can get, the better decisions you're going to make, the more news you get. The opposite is true. At least it has been for me. All right, people follow headlines, and that's what they do, and that's why when you're trying to tell the future, it can be confusing, because if you're watching the news, it's like, oh man, 2014 is going to be great, and then a couple months later, oh, it's doomsday is coming, and then depending on what channel you're watching, it's different all across. So it can be very confusing. Now, one example of that is the fiscal cliff. Anybody remember what that was? Anybody remember that? It was like a long time ago. Remember everybody was getting real hyped up like eons ago about the fiscal cliff? So what was going to happen, right? The government was going to go out of business. It was going to be anarchy if we didn't solve this thing. It was going to be so crazy. Everybody was trying to push their agenda, right? There's a lot of hype, remember? And what actually ended up happening? They waited till the last minute. Everybody knew. All the politicians wanted to get their spotlight. I'll try not to get too political, but they all wanted to get their spotlight and get in there and get in front of everybody for the next time they run. But here was the total accomplishment, $285 billion. Who thinks that's a lot of money? It's quite a bit of money, right? It's about 3 weeks of the federal budget, okay? Between the cuts and the increases in taxes, that's what we accomplished, okay? That's what all that hype was about. And the government still runs. It's amazing, right? We haven't turned into Argentina yet, 1990s Argentina, right? It's crazy. Excuse me. Well, the other result is the average American is going to pay about $800 to $1,000 more in taxes. And when they're going to get hit with that is when they file their taxes. If they usually get $2,000 back, they're only going to get $1,000 back. So they've got less discretionary income. Okay? That affects retail. That affects consumer spending is 70% of the economic activity in this country. It also has created an increased headwinds. Incomes are barely keeping pace with inflation. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But there was no substantial spending reductions. And what it's proven to us is a lack of confidence in Congress. They're just not interested in dealing with the real problems that we have moving forward. And it's a real shame. Now, you guys might remember this one. Who remembers the sequester? It was about a week ago. Remember when they had that oil spill, Horizon? Wasn't the world going to end then, too? Anybody remember that? It was like 10 years, a century ago, something like that. But yeah, that's why I say the news can really do some damage to us. So $85 billion is actually really $60 billion. Think about that. They're saying they cut $85 billion out of the 2013 budget. So it's really $60 billion basis because our budget is budget is going up, right? So it actually, in 2012 dollars, that's $60 billion that it actually saved. So they had you believing that if we didn't do these cuts, or if we did these cuts, single moms are going to go without milk for their babies, and you're going to go to the national park and nobody's going to be able to find a park ranger and you're going to get killed by a grizzly bear. Or, planes are going to fall out of the sky because there's not an air traffic controller or not, stuff like that. But did any of that happen on March 1st? No. What we ended up doing is we cut 1.6% of the federal budget. How many businesses over the last 5 years had to cut 1.6% of their budget? They're still surviving, right? So there's a lot of hype in all these things, and the cuts that they're doing are definitely not enough, and we're going to talk about that. We saved about 6.6% of the projected deficit is what the end result was. So it wasn't enough, and they made it look like it was way too much, didn't they? Or not enough. Now 2013, let's talk about this year, because this year is going to be a really, really interesting year. We're rocking and rolling, aren't we? Things are not bad in the land of real estate or in the land of America right now. This is my number one leading indicator. I call it IP, industrial production. Okay? This is what I love to track, and I'm going to show you how to track that at the end when I get into the references here. We're up 3.6% on industrial production, so that's a huge number over last year. All other leading indicators are positive through the first half of 2013. A leading indicator, I'll tell you what a leading indicator is. You're walking across the street. There's two kinds of people, okay? One guy's walking like this, or you're walking ahead. This is you. You're walking, and a bus starts to come by, and you can tell, holy crap, that bus isn't going to stop. So you stop at the curb. And the guy next to you, he's not looking ahead. He's looking down at the ground, walking like this, and he just keeps walking. One of you is tracking a leading indicator, and the other one is not. Does that make sense? It's that simple, okay? A leading indicator is if you have a sales organization and your guys aren't setting meetings with new clients, it's not going to lead to sales, right? If you look at sales, those are things that happen. You're running your business looking in the rearview mirror, right? It's too late. But if you track stuff that leads to sales, then that's called a leading indicator. You can get an idea of what's going to happen in the future. So that's what I track, leading indicators. Industrial production is one of them. Housing starts are up 5.6% from December. Retail numbers, they're up. We're blasting through retail. Man, we had one of the best Christmas seasons in something like 12 years this last holiday season. People are spending money. It's not going to last. And I'll tell you when it's going to stop. Wholesale trade is up 5.1%. That's not going to last either. Medical equipment supplies are up 9.4%. That will absolutely continue. That's going to be very, very strong because of all the things that are happening, obviously. Non-defense capital goods. This is basically how you track a leading indicator for B2B, business-to-business transactions, when they sell industrial equipment, stuff like that. This is down in the fourth quarter, but it's going to peak again right around the late part of 2013, early part of 2014. Okay? U.S. housing, it's peaking right now. We're in the peak right now. Home improvement construction is on the rise, and the interesting thing, here's how we do leading indicators. When housing is peaking historically, it's about 7 months behind when industrial production is going to peak. Okay? So housing is peaking right now, but our economy is going to be peaking right around August. If you've been to some of my past things that I've done, I've always said, hey man, I wish I could really throw the stock market under the bus, but it is going to be rocking and rolling. How many people in this room have heard me say that in the last 6 months? Got a couple of hands around here. It's going to be, and it has, right? We're hitting records. The S&P is up 123% since 2009. That's a big effing climb, isn't it? Right? That's a huge gain. Corporate profits are going to peak this year. Why are they going to peak? They can't make it much more efficient than they have. Okay? They really can't. And there's some big problems ahead in 2014. We've got affordable health care coming. I don't know if a lot of you guys track that. I do. I don't want to get into it because we'll start a big political crazy thing. But basically, 2014, that's when that becomes real. That's when they say to all the companies, if you have more than 50 employees, you have to provide health insurance. It has to be this. The government's going to start providing health insurance. It's going to raise rates through the roof. All my healthcare professionals are telling me that rates are going to increase 300 to 400%. So the companies have already leaned out everything. How are they going to account for that? So corporate profits, I don't see them rising much more. You also have Dodd-Frank and the Jobs Act reform. The SEC is going to start their rulemaking right around the corner here too. And what that's going to do, that's going to squeeze a lot of banks. It's not going to squeeze the Wall Street banks, but it's going to squeeze the non-Wall Street banks. And they're going to have a lot of additional costs, which they're going to pass along to business owners and stuff like that. So it's going to get real tight for business owners, and corporate profits are going to suffer because of that. So right now, I would beware to be in the stock market. We're rocking and rolling now. I've told everybody we're going to be rocking and rolling, but right now is when I'd put those stop losses in place right now so that you don't lose your ass on it. Now, what could happen too, you're not going to know that the stock market is going down until, because what we're doing right now, the Fed, which I'll cover later, is shoveling $85 billion into the economy every month, right? And I'll cover that in some detail later, but that's going to prop up corporate returns and a lot of other things because it makes money a lot looser. The Fed is confused right now, and they're all at odds with each other, okay? They're confused about the policy. Some of the chairmen are really freaked out about what's happening, and some are really pushing, okay? So I'm going to cover this in a little bit, but they could pull out and stop doing that in a second, and that's going to have a real drastic, real sharp effect on the economy and on the stock market. So I'd beware of Wall Street right now. Now, 2014 is when we're going to go into a mild consumer-driven recession. We will absolutely have a recession in 2014. If you watch the news right now, you got a lot of people hyping and hollering about how good we're going to do in 2014, and you got a lot of people talking about this as well. So I guarantee you we're going to have a dip, okay? Some industries will not be affected, and I'll cover that, but a lot of them will. It's going to happen in late 2013, and it'll probably go through the entire year of 2014, Okay? Remember I said consumer spending is 70% of the economic activity, and here's why we're going to have a little recession. I know you guys are probably still high on the news that we added so many jobs recently. Okay? Here's why it's not going to continue. When these companies get hit with these healthcare charges and they have to provide healthcare for all these employees, you're going to have a lot of small and mid-sized companies that are going to be shaving just to be below 50 employees so that they can be exempt from this rule. Okay? You're also going to have a lot of companies taking near close full-time employees and ratcheting them down to part-time so they don't have to supply healthcare. Companies like Walmart are going to try to get super, super lean and efficient. There's going to be massive layoffs because it is just so expensive for them to provide this health care, and they probably won't provide it, and there's going to be a $3,000 fine per employee every year that the government's going to impose on them. So they're going to try to shave where they can. Okay? You got somebody working in a Walmart that works full-time and makes $22,000 a year, and now they've got to pay a $3,000 fine for that person. I mean, that increases their payroll by more than 10% for Walmart. So you're going to have a lot of cutback in hours, and you're going to have a lot of layoffs when all this goes into effect. Higher taxes are affecting people's discretionary income, what they can spend, these consumers. And with that, we have increasing gas and food costs as inflation starts to set in. So they're getting squeezed in the middle right now. People can't spend money. It's not going to help the economy. There's also a lot of non-fundamental driving factors that are going to start to disappear. They're going to stop shoveling this money into the economy. They're going to stop doing that. Those non-fundamentals are going to go away. That's going to have a huge effect. Dodd-Frank Jobs Act rulemaking, that's going to begin to continue to squeeze it, and the health care reform is going to become real in 2014. So that's all going to lead to a mild recession. We need to be prepared for it. Now, this presentation is not going to be a doom and gloom thing. I am not a doomsday guy. Okay? There's a huge light at the end of the tunnel here. I want to show you this so you can prepare for it. Okay? And I'll talk a little bit about that. This recession is not going to be bad. Okay? The past recession, we were down, industrial production was down 12.2%, which is a huge drop, massive drop. This one, it should be down about 2.9%. Okay? So it's not going to be that bad, but it will affect things. Less affected are going to be energy, because we have a huge domestic energy boom here. Construction, medical, and food industries. Okay, medical is going to thrive, obviously. Food is going to thrive. Corn has outperformed gold. Did anybody know that? In this recession, corn outperformed gold. It's crazy. Due to a strong 2013, we are going to be rocking and rolling in 2013. Due to a strong 2013, housing will not drop below the levels they are today. So we've got a lot of climbing to do. So whatever house prices are today, through this recession, it will not drop below what it is today because we're going to have such a steep incline coming over here through the rest of 2013. All right, there's some good news. There's a couple of states that you should really pay attention to. North Dakota's on the top list of the top economic states' economic future. Anybody want to take a guess why? Man, they are booming. They are booming, right? Little North Dakota. You got a lot of breadbasket states in here, Nebraska, Kansas. Texas is right there in the middle with Oklahoma. Anybody want to know why Middle America is so successful? Lower cost of living. Yeah. Man, we've got a super low cost of living right now. Higher employment, right? There's a big diversification of industry in Middle America right now. Lots of different industries. Who knows the biggest reason why Texas is going to succeed? Why it's on the map? What's that? It's a very friendly business environment. Any other reasons why? What did you say? Domestic natural gas. This is our saving grace. We've got to be behind this, okay? I'm not in the natural gas or the oil industry. I'm not. But I am so for this. Jobs, right? We have the Barnett Shale here. We've got another one down by San Antonio, and we just found a huge oil shale in West Texas that they're going to be pumping for a very long time. In fact, over the next 7 years, by 2020, could add 2.5 to 5 million jobs in the United States. Okay? For every dollar that we spend on manufacturing, it provides $1.48 for our economy here in the United States. So that's a huge, huge benefit for us. And that's why I think real estate is going to rock and roll in Texas, because we have the shale, because we've got the jobs coming here, because we have all those downstream effects of all this industry. Now let's talk about DFW. Here's what's happening right now. Market sucks right now, doesn't it? The median home price has gone up 7.6% since last year. We don't see appreciation like this in Texas. We don't. Man, we are rocking and rolling. Days on market. So if you put a house on the market, it's gone from 120 days in 2011 to 87 days. That's a 20%, more than a 20% drop in how fast we're selling these houses. Man, we are rocking and rolling. Inventory of houses, we're down to 4 months inventory. We've cut it in half in the last 2 years. So we are rocking and rolling. It is time right now to flip houses. All the landlords that thought, hey, I don't flip, it is time right now to flip houses. There's a killing to make it. Right, Chuck?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what Chuck's doing. You go on Facebook right now, and the guy that owns the title company is posting pictures about the last house he flipped, the before and afters, you know. People, you know, your neighbors starting to flip houses, all that. If you can find the right properties, if you can get really good at management, if you can secure solid financing, if you can build a network of contractors and CPAs and all that stuff, you can really kill it right now. Now is the time to start flipping houses. It's here now. 5 years, you're going to wish you did, because what you do, you know, flipping houses is a job. You don't get wealthy flipping houses, but you sure do build up a lot of reserves so you can buy a lot of rental properties so you can build wealth. Now's the time to do that. All right, let's talk about the next 20 years, next 10, 20 years. This is something I call, this is the doom part of the thing, okay? This is going to represent a lot of risks, and it's going to represent tremendous opportunities for all of us in this room in the next 10 to 20 years. I call it the unsustainable fiscal path. There's a couple ways we can avoid this. I don't think they're going to happen, but I'll show you what they are. But first, let's talk about what the problem is. This is a historic view of federal spending. Okay, today we exceed 40% of the GDP, gross domestic product. Okay, that's our whole economy. We spend 40% of our whole economy, government spending. It's ridiculous. If you see here, this spike, the last time it was just above 50% was World War II. Okay? I mean, you can imagine how scary World War II was. They dropped a nuclear bomb on a country when nobody even knew what a nuclear bomb was. I mean, it was doomsday. And we're talking about anarchy mode where we're going full force and we're only spending 52% of our domestic product on government spending and fighting a war around the world. Today, we're spending 40%. Today, we're spending 40%. Defense spending is not to blame. People poke sticks at that. I don't want to jump on the right-wing side of things, but entitlements have exceeded defense spending for a very long time. And if we can get our dependence off of foreign oil, if we can do that, then defense spending should go down. And we should free up that money. Here's one of the big problems. Obviously, we got to have Medicare because we got to take care of the individuals that have built this country. But the problem is we don't have people coming up behind the aging population to make up for the dollars that we have to spend right now on Medicare. And medical costs are going up; they're not going down. So the only thing that can happen is the quality of Medicare can go down. And that'll be one of the effects, and there's no way to stop it because our aging population, these baby boomers, there's just more and more of them. Federal spending versus revenue, okay? This is kind of cute. You see the green here? That was a surplus. We had a surplus for a little while. We were on a roll, weren't we? Not anymore. So it's projected to really increase. This is the deficit. That's the difference between what we bring in for taxes and what we spend. How do we get all the extra money that we spend? I'll show you that in a little bit, but here's a historic view on the national debt, right? These are all the war bonds. You know, we were up there. And now we're approaching, the debt is starting to continue, and it's projected to really take off. This is a very important chart I want to show you. All this information, if you notice at the bottom here, it's from the Congressional Budget Office. So this comes from Congress. Okay? This is from Congress. So they know if they take the time, which maybe they don't, but if they take the time to look at this stuff, the facts are all there. These are just numbers, okay? This is the danger zone, 2025 to 2030, okay? There's a lot of different projections on this. Some people say it's going to happen sooner. If you watch and you see the Tea Party, nothing against Tea Party members or anything like that, but, you know, if you watch Fox News or anything like that, they make you think this is going to happen tomorrow. You know, we got some time, but this is the danger zone. 2025 to 2030, that's when the real GDP of this country, or the publicly held debt, is going to exceed GDP. Okay? And that's a dangerous place to be in. That's like, it's unsustainable. It's 100%, that's the point of no return. Okay? And that's when we are going to experience the worst economic depression that this country has ever seen. Okay? It's going to be far worse than the Great Depression. And here's why. The Great Depression, there was a bubble in what? Where was the bubble in the Great Depression? Stock market, right? You know, the first bubble, where was the bubble? Back in Holland? Tulips? You know, there's been lots of these bubbles. There's another big one. A lot of people don't realize this. There was a depression in the United States that was far worse than the Great Depression. Far worse. The railroad companies went crazy in the late 19th century, and there was the unemployment rate and the losses far exceeded the Great Depression. That was the railroad industry. That was private corporations buying up and expanding and raising money. The Great Recession that we went through, that was banking and finance, and you know, that became global, and that created problems and all that. This recession is going to have to do with the government, okay? So there is no bailout. There's no safety net. There's no quantitative easing. We don't have Germany to save us. Canada's not going to come in. They're 1/10 the size of our economy. You think they're going to save us? You know? We're not going to be able to rely on Germany to bail us out like Germany did all the other countries. Maybe we'll rely on Texas. But this is a big problem, and it's going to, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you if you're set up properly to buy assets at dirt cheap values, okay? A lot of people are going to have unprecedented wealth because of this crash. There's going to be a lot of loss, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity. Now, if you look at the interest the United States pays right now on its debt every year, it's a pretty big number. Imagine, who's got teenagers in here? Chuck? So, if you look at the budget of the United States, it's a lot like you would expect one of your teenagers or early 20-year-olds to have, right? So, you've got a family, let's just imagine the United States is a family, that has credit card debt and car payments and all that exceed their grocery bill, the Department of Agriculture. It exceeds all the people that they pay, the landscaper, their maid, all if they hire people, you know, their nanny. The Department of Veteran Affairs, I don't know how to, but it exceeds that. Department of Transportation, it exceeds their car payment and all that. Department of Education, they pay more in interest every month than they pay in their children's tuition at college and all that stuff, and more than the security budget right here for Homeland Security. Okay, it's a lot of interest. Where's it all going? Today, 48% of the debt is held by foreign countries. Okay, anybody ever watched the Shark Tank? What percentage do those guys want? They want the 51%, don't they? Okay, but anyway, we're still safe. We're at 48%. But all right, I just want to put this into perspective. Okay, I read this on in a newspaper here, or in one of my economics things. But this really puts it into perspective. If you take the fiscal cliff, or this was something they were doing before the fiscal cliff, you take the U.S. tax revenue and the federal budget and the new debt that we're bringing on from new programs that we're doing, and the national debt and the all the cuts that we're doing, and you put it into a household budget, the annual family income of the United States would be $26,800. And the money that the family spends every year would be $37,000. Okay? So they're spending a lot more than they're bringing in, obviously. The new debt that they're taking on the new credit card so they can do the new programs is $10,000. And so they're getting more debt. And then the outstanding balance on the credit cards that they owe is $160,000. They make $26,000 a year, this family, but they have $160,000 in debt on their credit cards that they have to pay. And the total budget cuts that they decided to do this year were $1,000. Remind you of your teenager, Chuck?
Yeah.
So now we've got some solutions because we're going to do this fiscal cliff, and we got some future cuts coming, all that stuff. So what are we going to do? Well, let's ask some of our family members to invest in our future. That's the first thing that we can do. Sound familiar, Chuck?
Absolutely.
And then this teenager goes, you know what? If I could just get a 2% raise, everything would be okay. That's what we're doing, okay? Or we could just apply for more credit cards, right? That's an option. So those are the three options that we're dealing with. National debt equals $50,000 per person in the United States. There's 314 million people in the United States. Each one of them owes $50,000. They don't know they owe it. It doesn't work like that. Now, I'm not going to get into taxes and all that because, we'll go on forever, but it really doesn't work like that. So if you don't make any money and you don't produce anything, then you shouldn't have to worry about any of this stuff because you're not going to have to pay any of this debt, right? But if you're productive, if your kids grow up and they're productive and all that, they're not just going to have to pay the $50,000 because they're going to have to pick up all the change for everybody else. So when they say they're going to add stuff to the budget, when they say they're going to increase the budget, again, I'm not getting political. I don't know what's going to happen with the health care and stuff like that. It could be the greatest thing ever. I truly am not saying this just to be a non-political. I truly don't know what's going to happen. So we'll watch it. It could be just as great as Canada's. Who knows? But what it means is, I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you've got lots of people that are hungry in the United States, which we do have. And let's say I'm a politician, and I say, hey, why don't we feed these people? We should do that, right? And a lot of you people in the room, we're good people. People have compassion in them. They want to help people. If I said, hey, we should feed the poor, how many people would disagree with me? In the room today, how many people? Anybody? People need food. We should feed them, right? Okay. Now, okay, that's good. We should do that. Let's do that. Now, here's what I want all of you to do. Today is Saturday, so on Monday, I want you to go to your bank. I want you to take out a personal loan for $5,000, okay? And I want you to meet me on Monday. Will you do that? And just give me $5,000, and we'll use that to feed the poor, okay? How many people are going to do that on Monday? I think some people in the room probably still would do that, right? If you pulled at the right kind of heartstrings and you did all that stuff. Oh, but there's a problem. Now, if we do this, if you pay me this $5,000 that you took out on a loan from your bank, there's going to be some side effects. Here's the side effect. When you go to the grocery store next year, your grocery bill is going to be like 4 times as high, and the food quality is not going to be as great. So that's one of the side effects, okay? But we'll feed the poor, right? You don't know these poor people, but we'll just give them food, right? They don't have to work for it, but we'll give it to them. Oh, but there's another catch too, because this loan that you take out from the bank for $5,000, it's not an adjustable rate loan, it's an adjustable balance loan. So every year, depending on how hard you work and how responsible you are as a human being, the balance is going to go up. Okay? And if you don't do anything, the balance will go down. Okay? So that's how it works. So if you're super responsible, it won't be a $5,000 loan, it'll be a $100,000 loan. If they just pitched us like that on the idea, we probably wouldn't have as much buy-in, right? Does that make sense? So that's what I'm trying to convey over here. Not that these programs are good or bad or anything like that, but the reality is a little bit different than the way we're being pitched by individuals that want to make this program possible. All right. Now, we know that we're going to hit the point of no return, okay? We know that we can't keep spending. We know we got to do things about it right now. Now, there's 3 things that can be done to stop the worst economic depression that the country's ever going to see in 2025, 2030. It might not happen, okay? Here's the first thing that could happen to stop it. World War III, right? If we have World War III, we're probably not going to hit that economic depression, right? That's what got us out of the other one, right? World War II. If somebody invented fusion energy, right? If there was an invention on the size and scale of the microchip, it would change the world. The microchip changed the world. You can imagine how much change it's done, how much efficiency it's brought to us, okay? Now, if someone had a huge invention like that, it could change things. Now, the least likely of the 3 scenarios that could prevent this is a change in leadership, okay? Or the leadership in America, like Robert was saying, Robert Kiyosaki, there's poor leadership. Nobody wants to do anything about it. If we started doing stuff about it today, okay, that was one of the cuts, but they're not going to do anything about it till it's too late, as we know. All right, interest rates and inflation. Here's what's happening. Okay? The Fed right now is buying $45 billion per month in long-term treasuries, and they're also spending another $40 billion on mortgage-backed securities. That's called quantitative easing. Okay? They're doing that every single month. They're just shoveling money into the economy. Okay? Ben Bernanke should have his face on the dollar bill, right? Because they're making it all. And it is helping the economy. It is helping. There's a lot of... Here's what their plan is right now. They're going to stop doing this once unemployment reaches 6.5%. And we know that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. Or inflation reaches 2.5%. That's probably going to happen in 2015. Okay? Now, this is when rates will start to go up. The bond market has also peaked right now. Okay? The bond market has gone up 40 basis points, and rates, they're as cheap as they're ever going to be is today, okay? Rates will start going up if anybody follows the bonds and all those. Mortgage rates are definitely going to start increasing as of probably right now. We're probably there right now at the lowest point we're ever going to be at. In 2015, when they stop shoveling money into the economy, that's when rates are really going to start to hike. Who bought a house in 1987? What was your mortgage rate? 12.9. That was a steal. If you're a businessman and you're relying on the Fed to keep things right, you're neglecting one of your primary responsibilities to your business and to your employees and all that. The Fed doesn't know what's going on. They admit that. And what's happening right now, some of the concerns that they have, in an open committee minutes, this was in December, several of the members believe it would be appropriate to slow or stop bond buying as early as 2013. Here's what they're worried about. The Fed takes on a $1 trillion balance sheet by dumping all this money into it every year. It's unsustainable, and they know it. They know it's unsustainable. Okay? Kansas City Fed President Esther George, she is openly concerned about the continuing quantitative easing. So are other members, okay? They're concerned about this having negative effects on the economy and us falling off this cliff temporarily. If they do that, rates are going to return. The Fed will not they can't keep rates down any lower. The quantitative easing will no longer work, and rates will return. I don't know if they're going to go as high as 15, 16% like they did in the late 80s. I don't know if they're going to go to 8%. But what that means for real estate investors is you don't want to be sitting here 10 years from now looking back and going, I could have had a mortgage, a 30-year fixed rate at 3.5%. And now they're 12. So, all right. We're going to try to get Warren Buffett on the phone. Were we able to get him? No? All right. So we're just going to watch a video. There was a video, I don't know how long ago, it was probably 1.5, 2 years ago. Warren Buffett went on, and everybody started talking about what he was saying, and a lot of people got it wrong. So I'm going to play it now, because he's the greatest visionary, isn't he, Warren Buffett? And now that the stuff is happening right now, you can see kind of what he was talking about, but a lot of people missed it at the time. So let me just play that video real quick. Can you get my volume up so I can do that?
But if I had a way of buying a couple 100,000 single-family homes and had a way of managing, the management is enormous. It was really a problem because they're one by one. They're not like apartment houses. So, but I would load up on them, and I would take mortgages out at very, very low rates. But if anybody is thinking about buying homes, 5 years ago they couldn't buy them fast enough because they thought they were going to go up, and now they don't buy them because they think they're going to go down, and interest rates are far lower. It's a way, in effect, to short the dollar, because you can take a 30-year mortgage, and if it turns out your interest rate's too high next week, you refinance lower, and if it turns out it's too low, the other guy's stuck with it for 30 years. So it's a very attractive asset class now.
If you are a young individual investor at home and you have your choice between buying your first home or investing in stocks, where would you tell someone is the better bet?
If I thought I was going to live, if I knew where I was going to want to live the next 5 or 10 years, I would buy a home and I'd finance it with a 30-year mortgage, and it's a terrific deal. And if I was an investor that was a handy type, which I'm not, and I could buy a couple of them at distressed prices and find renters, I think that's, and again, take a 30-year mortgage. It's a leveraged way of owning a very cheap asset now.
As he said, hey, I'd love to buy 100,000 of these houses, but management is the problem. I couldn't manage 100,000 of these houses. And that's true with single family, right? And that's why I don't believe in what these hedge funds are doing around here and stuff like that. And I think it's, well, if you want to hear about that, we can talk about that later. But what he said is, what I want to do, they asked him, they said, what would you do? Would you invest in the stock market, or would you invest in real estate today? Because he said both were going to do really well, which they did. This was 1-2 years ago. That's what the lady asked him. And Warren Buffett said, you know what? If I knew where I was going to live over the next 5 years, because of course Warren Buffett's just like a transient that moves all the time, right? But he said, if I knew where I was going to live over the next 5 years, I would buy a house. And he said, if I was one of these handy investors, meaning I had a network of contractors and all that stuff, I would get as many of them as I can, and I'd buy them distressed, and I'd fix them up. And what I would do is I would get the Fannie Mae mortgage. Why would he get a Fannie Mae mortgage? If the shit is going to hit the fan with the economy, with inflation, with everything, why would you get a Fannie Mae mortgage? Somebody please answer me. Fixed rate 30 years. Can you think of another entity in the United States that's dumb enough right now, besides a government-sponsored entity, that will give you a 30-year fixed rate at a 3.5% mortgage rate? If you wanted to start a bakery, and you had no experience in the bakery business, and you went and you sat down with your banker and you said, here's what I want to do. I want to open a bakery. I got a great location picked out. Here's what I want you to do, Mr. Banker. I want you to give me 90% of the money that I need. I got 10% I can plop down, but I want you to give me the other 90%. I want to pay it off over 30 years, and I only want to pay you 3.5% interest. Oh, I don't have any experience with baking either. What is your banker going to say to you? You can do it every day right now with real estate. That's how it works. Just like Kiyosaki was saying, get the money while it's out there. Here's what Warren Buffett was saying. He was saying, I'd get the mortgages, 30-year fixed, 3.5%, super low rate. If inflation goes through the roof, the other guy's still stuck with the note, right? His payment doesn't go up, but rents go up, real estate goes up. All these things go through the roof, right? But you're still paying the same $400 that's worth $200 in the future. It's a hedge against problems with the dollar, problems with the economy. That's what he meant by that. You can get up to 10 Fannie Mae mortgages. If you're married and you don't file jointly, you file separately, you can get 20 of them, one on each, as long as you both have income. So the Fannie Mae mortgage is a hedge right now. That's why you cannot walk into a private bank and get a mortgage at a fixed rate. They won't do it. They will if they're selling to Fannie Mae, but they won't do it on their portfolio stuff because they're all freaked out about inflation. That's why every bank does an ARM. Okay? So what does that tell us right now about the economy? We know the real estate's going to start picking up, so we want to buy now, right? We know that flipping is going to be great over the next year. It might dip a little bit in 2014, but probably not that much in Texas. Probably it will in the rest of the United States. The reason I went through all that is so when you're watching the news, you know what's going on. It's after the dip in 2014, we're probably going to be back to raging again. It's going to be another great time to flip houses. So right now, a great strategy for you guys is to buy houses, fix them up, flip them, build up your cash reserves so you can buy rentals. Build up your cash reserves so you can buy rentals. Okay? Because when the crap hits the fan, it sure is great to have 10 houses that are getting pretty close to being paid off if you've got them on 15, 20-year notes. And you can ride out all these problems, and you got another stash of money set aside so that you can buy more rental properties when that time comes and take advantage of the drops in prices and all that stuff, and you still got tons of cash flow coming in. So that's pretty much my advice for everybody in the room. What I'd recommend you to do, there's a company that wasn't here today. It's the company that I own. They weren't here. ShermanBridgeLending.com. What we do, remember I said last year we lent $25 million to real estate investors. I want to lend 60 this year. I'm going to do it. Regardless of if I lend you money or anything like that, I've got some trained professionals that will sit down with you and help you develop a plan. Okay? Regardless if you borrow money from us or anything like that, the first thing they do is they help you develop this plan, and then after that you're ready to go. You got your financial deal set up, you got the plan of what you want to do over the next 20, 30 years. And they'll create a real realistic thing in tune with your goals and what you want to do. All right, guys, these are the resources I want to share with you. Write these down. ITR Economics. Okay, this is a great non-political economics firm. They speak all around the United States. They predicted the crash. They're about 90% accurate. They in their predictions, or at least they have been. They've been in business since 1945 doing this. Great resource for you. New Western, if you want to buy properties, you can get discounted properties. It's a great place to start. My House Deals, the reason I want to do this, I want to show you this too, is because if you go on My House Deals, that's where all the flippers are. So all these wholesalers that sell properties, if you're going to buy these properties, there's 4 fundamentals of real estate. Number 1, you've got to have access to properties. You want people to send you as many properties from as many different sources as you can possibly find, especially today when it's super hard to find properties, okay? So you want your email box to have 10 properties a day in there that you can look at and review through. Even if 2 of them are deals you actually want to look at, you want to get people to send you deals, okay? The second fundamental of real estate is you want to have a network, and that's why we have all these industry professionals here so that you can get contractors, so that you can get, stagers for your home, so you can get all these things in place. The most important 2 fundamentals of real estate is management and finance. That's what I told you before. Management is all on you. It's all on you. You got to figure out how to manage this stuff. People can guide you along, but that's your responsibility. You got to get a solid source of financing. You can go to ShermanBridge.com. That's the financing source. Additional resources, Congressional Budget Office, U.S. Office of Management and Budget. These are places you can get all the figures that I pulled for all my charts. Guys, that's the rest of my presentation.